Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda McKissick and Dana Gentry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissick.
And I'm Dana Gentry.
Hey, Dana, how are you? Did you have a nice Thanksgiving?
I did have a really good Thanksgiving. We just kind of relaxed and hung out and did some just stuff around the house. And yeah, it was good. How about y'all?
Yep, very good. Too much food. Now I got to kick the sugar again.
I was going to tell you even before the podcast started that I'm starting my Zoe tomorrow.
Oh, I'm so excited. Oh, I can't wait to hear all about it.
Now I just stick that thing in my arm and leave it there, right?
You do for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. But there's also there's an app and you'll do everything on the app it tells you to do.
I got the app today.
Oh my gosh. I love it. I'm just totally trying to eat completely by Zoe right now. I'll report back. But except for I kind of got off and had a bunch of sugar at Thanksgiving, but
now, did it tell you that it went up your sugar?
Well, I'm not wearing it anymore. You only wear it for the 2 weeks.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
But what it's going to tell you next time when you get, after you send in everything, you'll get another app's called Zoe Insights. And in that you'll actually be told which foods are bad for your gut, which ones make your insulin go high, and which one make blood fat stay in your blood too long.
That's what I need. Yep.
Every food will get a score. And then what happens is you try to get your score every day to 75 or higher.
Okay.
And so it'll tell you a lot, and they're making it better all the time. So I'm super pumped about it because it's very individualized.
I cannot wait. Me and Adam and Heather are all three starting it tomorrow. And I said, we got it in the mail last week, but then we were like, shoot through Thanksgiving and everything. There's just no way. We're just going to wait and start fresh tomorrow.
Yeah. And my only recommendation is there will be a time even after the glucose monitor that they tell you what order to eat certain foods. Do that as close to it as you can. I didn't, and I wish I had them, but I may redo it in about 6 months or a year, just because I didn't do that part very good. Yeah. But yeah, really surprised by what it told me. I really don't do well with any kind of meat. None.
See, I have a feeling that's what it's
lentils, vegetables, fruit are pretty much what I get high scores with. So I ordered a Green Chef food plan just because I don't know how to fix vegan or vegetarian so I think I'm going to be a pescatarian because I can do shrimp and fish. Yeah. But you'll get recipes with this Green Chef, and I figure I'll try those for a while and then keep the ones I like.
Now, you'll eat sushi, won't you?
Yeah, I love sushi.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So see, if you did pescatarian, you could still do fish, sushi. Yeah,
I can do shrimp. I can do tuna. I can do salmon. I don't like salmon, but I like salmon croquettes or something like that. So I can do that. Yeah. Anyway, so sidebar. So you and I both kind of had some crap happen lately. And the more risk you take, the more opportunities in your life you're going to have stuff happen. I mean, I don't think there's a single human out there that doesn't have something that happens. And so I kind of thought it would be a good opportunity for us to kind of talk through what was the steps that we took and what did we learn and discover. I know we both hated it while we were in it. And the only comforting thing was you were going through the same time I was.
I was going to say that.
And so, stuff's going to happen. The bigger life you try to have. And I think the more you try to succeed through people and businesses you're going to run, you're going to just have stuff happen. So I'll kick us off. And the first thing I would say is, I always do this. I don't know if you do this or not, but I always say, what's the worst thing? Because if I start catastrophizing and panicking, thinking, oh my God, but I don't tell myself, okay, but Linda, literally, what is the worst that's going to happen? And if I just go there first, something about that makes me feel better because it's like I've lived in that worst case for just a second. And now I can come back to, okay, even if I go in there and find out it's this bad, what would I do? And it's okay. I could figure it out. So that's the first thing I do. Well, first thing you and I both do is we look around for the adult-ier adult. And then we realize that is us. We are the adult-ier adult. And
I was just going to say, that's actually the first thing I do.
Yeah. And then we put on our big girl panties and we just get in after it.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. Yes, I would totally agree with that. Definitely. I look for an adult-ier adult. I like that you just said something that reminded me. Adam is so good about this. He'll always say, the very first thing he'll say to me is, well, is somebody going to die? And I'm like, no, well, no, I don't think so, unless I get really mad and kill him. But no, nobody's going to die. And then he'll say, okay, well, that's a positive. So there's really nothing worse than that. And I'm like, okay, but it feels like everything is worse than that.
Well, and that leads me to my second one is go ahead and go get in the middle of the situation, because the farther on the peripheral I stand when something's happening, the worse it is. My anxiety's worse. I kind of almost think I immediately go to guilt, even though I may have had nothing to do with it. Well, I always have something to do with it. So let me rephrase that. There's always some DNA of mine in it.
Yeah.
But I still, I think guilt comes in for me for some reason. I can feel guilty at anything at the drop of a hat, and I hate it, and I wish I didn't do it, but I do instantly. And I don't know if that comes from something where I don't know. But anyway, that's the first thing that happens, and I hate that place. So what I find, if I just go ahead and go get in the middle of it, what I really want to do is go stick my head under a rock. But if I just go get in the middle of it, number one, it's never as bad, or there's something comforting about talking to the people in the situation and trying to uncover, what really is. Because a lot of times what's happening in my situation is I'm listening to everybody else.
Yep.
And some people in the world immediately tell you the sky's falling.
Yeah.
Those people drive me crazy.
Yep.
Because my nerves almost like get on fire the minute, like, oh my gosh, so-and-so's this is happening. And you're like, and the truth is it's not really, or if it is, okay, it is, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I found is just getting in the middle of it makes me feel a little bit better.
Yep, I totally agree with that too. So I wrote down several, and they're kind of not in any real order, I guess. But for me, typically the first thing when there's a lot going on and in the middle of a mess, I have to evoke the 24-hour rule, because I tend to want to like lose it right off the bat. And so I have really worked hard over the last couple of years to just take 24 hours and kind of think through and look for my own DNA or hours, if it's the office, or the team. And then I typically after that reach out to somebody that's been there before or that's going through the same thing, just so I can kind of logically talk myself through it. And then typically is when then I'll get into action. And there were several things that I was thinking about through this, and this has really just been over the last year or so, but I loved some of the stuff that we learned at Exchange this year. And I'm actually going to talk about that because it does play into that. And in this recent situation where I was kind of having crap hit the fan and you were kind of having crap hit the fan, it was funny because I was thinking about what John Maxwell taught us at Exchange. And a lot of times I really try to do this. Like I'll say, okay, here's our values and here's what I know that we're doing and the things that we're moving towards. And so I try to think, okay, does this person know that about us? Do they know our values? And are we in alignment with those? And then if we're not, then I got to get into asking a lot of question mode. So like the third thing I wrote down was ask a ton of questions. And I loved that the former, I think governor, I don't know, I can't remember, but that Bill Haslam from Tennessee, I loved one of the things that he said. And I think it was, I don't know if this was exactly it, but it was something like, I never assume that I have all the right answers. And so I really feel like you got to go in and ask a ton of questions. And then just start, like you said, getting in the middle of it and trying to figure out, okay, after I ask all these questions, where's our DNA? Then who's done it before? Where's my adult-ier adult, if there is one, or what are the solutions around it? Are our values in alignment? Because to be honest, some of the crap that we were dealing with, like we were just out of alignment on our values. And that was just one I had to be okay with because we didn't have the same values. And so it kind of was what it was, I guess. And I think about one of the things that John Maxwell said at Exchange, and I don't even remember, I think he was talking about being an indispensable leader when he was talking about this, but he said, remember in the Bible when Nehemiah was building the wall and he said, I'm building a wall and I can't come down. And I related that to some of this stuff. Like I know where I'm going and I know what I'm building and I know what I'm doing and I'm not coming down. So I'm going to keep doing it and we're going to try to work through some of these things.
Mhm.
And if our values align, then, great. And if not, then it's like, it's not the end of the world. And like Adam would say, nobody's dying. And like you would say, what's the worst thing that could happen?
Mhm.
And then really kind of go from there. But I know the goals that we're going to accomplish and I just am not going to be distracted from them.
Yeah. And that kind of reminds me of, like in our situation, realizing that we did have DNA in it, as far as certain things, and just understanding that and apologizing. Just go ahead and own it and apologize for what
Yep.
part you did have in it.
And Linda, I think sometimes that's where values do come in, because if somebody apologizes to me and I feel like they have a contrite heart, then
yeah,
one of my values is like honesty and loyalty, then I'm forgiving of them, and if people aren't, then that usually tells me something too, right off the bat, about maybe we might have a value misalignment.
Mhm. Yeah. And, and for the people that are listening, if you've got somebody and you lose them over a situation, or you can't get together with them on the situation, or you find out that their values don't match, then the truth is your dreams and your goals, like you said, have to be so much bigger.
Yeah.
than someone who jumps off the bus or fires you or quits you or whatever the case may be, whatever your situation is. And I think that's the best place you can get to. But, and sometimes I know when we run businesses, our DNA is that we took our eye off the ball and we trusted a certain leader to be delivering, and it wasn't getting delivered. And so by the time you wake up on suddenly, it's piled up a mile high, and now you're going in and trying to do damage control, and it's hard,
Yeah, well, and we probably have a lot of people listening that have teams that, they've had this work with team members on real estate teams, or, entrepreneurs, business owners and employees that they have, or whatever. I mean, I think that you can relate it to all sorts of different stuff.
Yeah, so true. And then one thing that I don't know if you do this or not, but my tendency is, and I really have to work this, because most of my issues now are all around businesses.
Yeah.
And businesses are people making me money.
Yeah.
But I'm a fixer. So I have to really hold myself accountable that I'm not the one that personally goes and fixes it. I've got to immediately look up and say, who's the leader? Or if there's a gap, who could be the interim leader? Because my tendency is for me to think I have to go fix it. And when you own businesses, it's people making you money. And that's the worst thing you can do, is keep stepping back in. And then ask yourself, how could I prepare myself to not be in this situation later? And one of the things I said recently is, I'm getting more people. I'm going to get some people between me and all the situations I have, because I don't want any of them back. And, it's something about a problem that's going on that you're, arm's length away, or like I say, you're 30,000 feet and it's at 1,000. It feels different than all of a sudden when you're right there on the ground with it. It feels 10 times worse. So
totally
my goal is to always say 30,000 feet and look for, someone else to be between the 30,000 and the 1,000 foot, not me, right? Not me, someone else.
Yeah, I'm terrible at that, because I'm the same. I just want to pick up the phone and call myself, or go right in and do it. And actually, I just told Terry on my coaching call before the holidays, I said, I've got to figure out a way for people, not as many people, to come to me over every little thing. And I know that it's because I've always been the one that's jumped in. And, I think that's, a really, really valid point, because then also it kind of undermines the leader a little bit too, who's supposed to be being the leader.
Well, part of what's hard for you, Dana, because I can't believe you said this, because I thought about this. I thought about you the last time we were somewhere, when you were headed somewhere and you'd been to this somewhere and you'd been doing that. Part of me I thought it after you left, and I thought, oh, I need to tell her this, because you have such a strong personality and charisma about you that if you're the one, I always just go back to Gary. I think, Gary doesn't go to the Christmas parties, right? He does. And I feel like I'm supposed to be at everything, even though I've got another leader that it's their responsibility, right?
Yep.
And so
That's so funny you're saying this, because that's exactly what my whole call with Terry was about.
well,
Because
I thought about it after
feel
you
that.
left and you said, I've been here. I think I texted you or something. You said, well, no, or I don't even know what you and I were talking. You said, I was here and now I'm going here. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, Dana, you're such a charismatic person that no one's, you're the glue, you're the product, and you don't want to be the product, right? Because then you never have any freedom, and your own business is that
Totally.
freedom.
Yep. Yeah. That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, it is a whole nother funny, but it's funny because, and the reason I can say this to you is because I see so much of me in you, and the fact that I am so guilty of that.
Yeah.
It's almost because I get comfort if I can go in and try to fix it. Whereas, if I'm on the outside and I'm expecting somebody else to do it, I still worry about it. And I think, are they getting it done and all that stuff? But anyway, I was going to say that to you because you have such a great charisma about you and such a great it factor that you have to be careful, because if they don't have that same it factor, number one, they're going to suck. They're going to need you. And then the people are going to prefer you. And I remember this from years ago when Jimmy was the operating principal of one of our market centers. If he went in, they just like were glued to him. And it's like, he said, I finally just quit. This is much easier for him to pull off than me. He just like runs. He's like gone. He don't care. You do it. But he said, I had to stop going in because they would come to me always. And so I've tried really hard in my current situation not to be the person. Even though I did kind of jump in a little bit on the front end. And I said, Linda, what are you doing? Why do you think you have to fix it? You own businesses, which are people making you money. Hold those leaders accountable to doing it, or get the right one in there. And it's so funny because the one I have put in one of my deals right now is, this fills her up. She's, it's hard. She walked into a hard situation, but this is what fills her up. This is the kind of stuff that she shines in. So I need to let them shine more.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And the sad thing about that is I've recognized that, but now I struggle bringing people in because they don't give them a chance because they're so used to me. And that's the really hard part for sure.
Yeah. And I would venture to bet any leader has crossed this bridge at one time until they realize that the reason they have the business is so that they don't have to be the one that everybody comes to, because you can only be so many places and you can't be everywhere. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally true. Totally true.
And then another thing I wrote down, and this is something, especially in a situation where you have put someone else in charge and you didn't really inspect thoroughly what was going on. I always say, look, there's some worse things coming. So don't be surprised, because the little mess you see on the front end is one mess, but there'll be plenty more, because when that person is not fulfilling the job, then the stuff's piling up all around and you just don't see all the piles yet. So don't be
I call that you then discover where all the dead bodies are buried.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great
and they keep coming, and then more keep going.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. So there you go. So that was that. And then one other that I put is always be asking yourself, in our cases, because we own businesses and we run businesses, who's a leader that could be an interim spot, or is your backup leader or on your bench? Because I've been guilty of getting crap handed back to me because I didn't have another person ready and on the bench.
Yep, totally. Yep, I think that's a huge one. You had everything that I had. The only thing I have left that we haven't talked about is I tend to kind of make a list and work through what the possible outcomes would be. Like, I'll come up with like the 2 or 3 best outcomes that, if in a perfect world, because, and Terry says this to me sometimes too. And Adam has, this is supposed to be a coaching thing. Don't tell me what you don't want. Tell me what you do want. And so, and I'm quick to say, well, I don't want this to happen, and I don't want this to happen, and gosh, I really don't want this to happen. So instead, I've tried to switch my mindset to say, okay, if I could have like the 3 best possible outcomes, what would they be? And I'll write them down, think about them, write them down. And then I just try to shoot or get towards the closest I can to one of those instead of all the things that I don't want to come out of the situation. And that really automatically, I think, kind of just flips a switch and you're like, okay, it's not terrible. Like we can come up with one of these outcomes. Yeah. And then it gets me focusing on the positive.
Yeah. One of the things, it was funny because one of my things I had going on recently, I reached out to Gary because I always know he has a worse scenario or something that's going to make me feel better. And there is something to say for listening to other people who have similar crap happen, because then you at least know that you're not the only one and that it's kind of part of what goes along with building businesses. Yep. He said the funniest thing to me, he said, it's no fun when the tail is wagging the dog. You got to get the dog wagging the tail again. Yeah. And I love that because I thought you were so right. I'm so tired of being the wagged by the tail. Tail is wagging me. I want to be the dog and wag the tail. So, but I don't know. And I would add that as another one. Find other leaders who have either gone through similar things or are going through them, because there just is comfort in. I mean, I caught myself wanting to reach out to you to see if you were okay, which helped me take the focus off how bad my stuff sucked, you know?
That's so true. I mean, that was the number one thing I wrote down, was talk to someone who's been there, because it automatically makes you feel a little bit better because you're like, whew, okay. It's not just me.
Yeah, so true. And, you know, I always know, because I always said, okay, God, I know you put me in these situations because you want to show me what you can do through me. And I always go into it fighting. I mean, this kind of reminds me of being so angry and upset when Jimmy, when we had to sell that business for so much more than we, you know, owed against it. And I mean, to walk away in that much debt, I was angry. I mean, I was angry, and I realized, I always ask myself, what are you angry about? And I'm angry because fear is always under anger. Yep. And I just said to myself, Linda, when were you this angry before? And it was when we went through the financial crisis. And then I said, what came out the other side of that? And I came out a stronger person who knew more of my capabilities than I had ever known before. Yeah. And so I just kind of gave myself a pause and said, what if this time is like that time?
Yep.
And if this time is like that time, look at all the beautiful blessings and gifts I got. And I just tried to remind myself, you know, the only other time in my life when I was this angry about something and upset about having to deal with it, that there were so many great gifts I personally got just going ahead and going through it that I would have never gotten if I'd have just threw my hands up and said, not doing it.
Well, you just said the question that we just heard a couple weeks ago was, if you could take back some of the hardest times that you've ever gone through and erase them, would you? And the whole room said no. Yeah. And the whole reason is because of what you just said perfectly. I mean, it changes us and it makes us stronger. And I always think about what John says too, in the mountains we celebrate and in the valleys we learn. And we're not always going to have mountains. I mean, there's definitely going to be times where we have valleys. And then I also love that when he said, and if you look at a really successful person, don't ever make the mistake that they don't have valleys or that they might not be in a valley right now. You just never know, because the bigger your businesses get and the more people really that are involved, I mean, the more that it happens, and you're going to have them.
Yeah. And you have outside circumstances. You have so many other factors that you know, the only thing that I tried to ask myself is, how can I be prepared? You know, what could I have been better prepared for this situation for? What are the things I could have had in place? But other than that, you just never really know what life's going to hand you. And the only thing you control is how you respond to it and, you know, what action you take based on that.
Yeah. I had one last thing that just made me think of that. That's funny. And I think this one is not to be, you know, obviously when you're in the middle of something and it's serious, you're serious. And also I think lately I've just come to realize, you know, sometimes it just is what it is. And I mean, like my friend Troy was texting me this weekend and he said, are you upset about it? And I said, honestly, at this point, I just have to laugh about it. Like, it just is what it is. And Adam said, I'm so proud of you that you're actually laughing about that. I'm like, well, I might be crying in 10 minutes, but right now I'm laughing about it because, it's just, it was out of my control. I couldn't control it anymore at that point. So it just was what it was.
Yeah. And it reminded me of a situation, because you're in the same situation that I am in, Dana, in the fact that even if one of your businesses blew up, you ain't going to be broke tomorrow, right? You're not going to, right? And this is the thing I used to always tell realtors: if you've got 10 deals on the books and one blows up,
yeah,
so be it. You're not that upset. But if it's your only deal and it blows up, it's a big deal. And so that's why you really have to go for it big and have a big life, because then if one fire is happening over here, you still got all these other places that aren't on fire, right? So I think that's the other thing too, just realizing that, okay, am I upset because this is a big deal, because it is a big deal, it's the only deal, or am I upset because, I wasn't keeping my eye on it or whatever I had to do with it. But remember, it's like, again, going to the worst thing that could ever happen. Somebody else that I kind of visited with when I was going through it, he said to me, he said, what would you do if it cost you all of it? I'm like, nothing. Wouldn't even have put a blimp on my finances. He said, okay. So then you know what I mean? Again, so he was kind of helping me point myself to the worst case. Yeah, I wouldn't even care. I mean, but I wouldn't miss it. I'd be okay. Or I'd go find another way to make the same amount of money.
Yep, totally.
So I think having things like that, having more on your plate than one thing that might be blowing up, one deal that's blowing up, or one team member that leaves you, or one business that's got some issues, then I think that helps to some degree.
Yeah, it definitely feels good to be diversified and things like that, for sure.
Awesome. Any last thoughts? The only other thing I would add, I'm going to add one more thing, and if you have something, we'll close out on this one. But I would always say, stay into curiosity, because a lot of times there's a lot of people that will scream, whatever, everybody's quitting or everybody's leaving or whatever.
Yeah.
But everybody has a story, but I've learned there's 3 sides to every story. So what is the truth? And if I go listen to enough people, the truth will come up, right? And if I just listen to the one person that screams the loudest, it's going to be a catastrophe. It's going to be 10 times worse than it might really be. And it may not be the whole truth. So I got to go get in there and figure out what the whole truth is.
Yep. Totally agree. 100%. I think that's perfect. I mean, I think the good news is that time kind of makes everything better. And so just not feeling like you're going to be stuck in it forever. I mean, and focusing on something else. And I've really been trying lately to focus and pour my attention. One of the things that John Maxwell said at Exchange really caught me. He said, he said, I love everyone unconditionally, but you have to earn the right to have his time. Mm-hmm. And that he spends time with the people that are, giving him what he wants, which obviously right now is for him to continue to grow, equip, and to do all those things. And so I was thinking, there's always, especially when you're in a pile of crap, everybody wants your time. So I've really been thinking, okay, who can I focus on giving time to this week that I know really appreciates it, and I'm going to make a difference with them, and we're going to it's going to be a positive thing just to kind of get me out of, while the crap is still happening and I'm dealing with crap, I at least can go be positive with people who have earned the right to have my time and we make a difference together. And I think that the more we do that, then that also kind of shifts me to a positive place.
And that kind of reminded me of a story of something last year, or was it last year COVID happened, or year before?
Yeah.
I don't know when.
I don't know.
I think it was last year. We had just gotten off a trip with John Maxwell to Israel.
Yeah.
And here's a perfect example. The last day or two, COVID starts heating up in the States, and we don't know. I mean, we just start hearing about it. John never misses a beat. He never is in the middle of it. It is not his problem. Mark is handling, and Stephanie, all of them are, because they had all these coaches coming for coaches camp or whatever, right when we got back. And John never is in the conversation. He's never running over there going, what's going on? What are we going to do? None of that stuff. I mean, he is just, I don't even think they're conversing with him about it. I think he's doing his thing and everybody else is handling that. That's where I want to get.
Yeah.
That is not my problem.
Yep.
I'm sorry you were having that problem, but I am in my lane.
You know what, though? He said that he has what you said, which is probably 5 or 6 people deep before it ever, you know what I mean? I mean, if somebody can't handle it, then it goes to somebody. If they can't handle it, it goes to Stephanie. If Stephanie can't handle it, it goes to somebody else. Then it goes to Mark, that, you know, way before John. So he just has like padded so many layers.
Yeah. Well, he had the COVID test and he passed it. Trust me. All right. So remember, if you haven't hit subscribe already, please do hit the button below to hit subscribe. And the greatest compliment you can give Dana and I is a 5-star review so that others can also find this podcast. And we would love it if you would pass this podcast along to anyone else that you would see that might get benefit from our conversations. And if you have a comment, a question, a praise, a thought, an idea, an opportunity, or a challenge that you'd like for Dana and I to help you with, be sure and reach out to us at info@everything life and real estate. And Dana, I guess I'll see you next week.
Sounds good. See you then.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.